gotta go.
Hey, no, stay a little while.
I wish I could stay forever. I've been waiting a long time for someone like you to come along. Now listen to me. Now don't go nodding off, listen to me. I can't see you for a bit.
What's that?
We'll just lay off for a day or two till I know what's what, eh?
I don't get you.
I gotta go.
Hey, wait, what's wrong?
I just gotta go.
But you mad at me?
I just gotta go.
Hey, no, don't be mad at me. Here, take this.
Well, what's that for?
That's for a very special lady.
Is that all it means to you?
I want you to have this.
30 bob screw.
Hey, now don't talk dirty now. You're here, don't sound ladylike. Now, come on, take it. It's just a token for my girl. You never minded before.
I don't want your money. I'm not a prostitute.
Yeah, I never said you was.
Oh, you're as bad as him.
As bad as who?
Never mind.
As bad as who, baby?
No one.
Come on, clue me in, honey child.
Shh! Your voice, you bloody street swear. I can't talk now.
Hey, well, I can. So look at me in the eye and tell me as bad as who.
What do you bloody think? My husband, you fool.
You hold it right there. Did you say husband?
Oh, don't look at me like that.
I ought to kill you.
Let's just leave it.
Shit. Is he there now? Was he up there in that room while we was making out? Holy shit. No wonder you were shaking so much. Right. Shit. Shit.
There he is.
We find you guilty of rape and sentence you by the unanimous vote of every member present to be hanged by the neck until dead.
A real-life incident of 1944 in which a black GI was accused of rape by a white woman inspired writer David Goodland to create his play The Life and Death of a Buffalo Soldier.
Real life and real people are always much more fantastic than you ever see on a stage. If you were to put real people on a stage, people wouldn't believe that they were real. So, in a sense, one has to recreate life in order that people would accept it, listen to it.
Using authentic trial testimony and shot at the real locations, it is a story of what happened to an American soldier, Leroy Henry, whilst he was stationed in England during the Second World War. From as early as 1942, black troops started to arrive in Britain, and during the next couple of years their numbers increased. Many of these troops were stationed in and around the West Country. Technician 5th grade Leroy Henry was one of the service troops of the Quartermaster Gasoline Supply Company. This predominantly black company was billeted at Brantwood, a beautiful country house in Southstoke near Bath. Nissen huts were erected in the gardens to accommodate the lower-ranking troops, whilst the house itself was used by the white officers. The locals had to accept the flurry of military activity, importing trucks and artillery into this sleepy village. The children soon realised these soldiers were good supplies of gum and chocolate, and the womenfolk enjoyed their company at dances and in the pub. The Cross Keys, only a 5-minute walk from Brantwood, was one of the soldiers' regular haunts.
The attitude of the majority of British people to the black soldiers was one of welcome. We want you here, thank you for coming, thank you for helping us fight Hitler. They had no knowledge of racism on the streets of Bristol or in any other West Country town, and so, in a sense, when the white troops arrived, and the white troops came after the black troops, and they displayed this contempt for their black colleagues, the citizens of this country were at first intrigued and then appalled at what they saw. Basically, working class people had no reason to be racist. There was no economic reason. They weren't coming over to steal jobs. Quite the reverse. They were coming over to defend us. The Old Vic were looking for something to commemorate VE Day, the 50th anniversary. I came across these stories of the black troops stationed in the West Country, and they immediately jumped at it and said, well, what can you do? And I said, well, there's this case and that case. And they commissioned me literally to research it very thoroughly and paid for me to go to America.
We're off to the archives.
And travel halfway across America with my friend J. Cameron Wade.
Chocolate soldier from the USA.
And we talked to survivors, black GI veterans of the Second World War.
Until the day he heard the bugle play, they made a colored dog.
I like the fish and chips, you know? Oh, yeah.
Chocolate soldier from the USA.
You can get away with it. This was a commission that you get once in a lifetime.
2 other people have been deeply committed to this play. They are Andy Hay, the artistic director of the Bristol Old Vic, who guided and supported David's research, and John Amos, who decided to take time off from making Hollywood movies to play the part of Sonny, a man searching for the truth about his father.
John Amos didn't need much persuasion. This play went straight to his heart because his own father was a GI. And it was a history that he didn't know about, a story he hadn't heard. And he said to me that when he read the play, he had a great excitement and a good feeling about it and wanted to do it.
You get that feeling with certain roles that you're born to play roles. And I got that feeling with this character of Sonny in Buffalo Soldier. When I told my father that I was involved in this play and what it was about, I could almost hear him weeping over the phone because he had suffered the same injustices as a black GI that some of these fictional characters in David's play did.
We wanted to bring the 2 cultures as they did in 1944 together, Bristolian and American.
The thing that fascinated me most was the idea that during wartime England, a man could be hanged for the crime of rape, which to me was extraordinary. I mean, I do know that it hadn't been a capital offence in this country since the 1860s. And so for it to be an event in a Somerset village that a man could be hanged, for that crime, it was extraordinary.
On the night of the 5th of May 1944, Leroy and other GIs were drinking at the pub.
Can I have a beer, please, man?
It was an ordinary evening. Leroy relaxed, and several fellow soldiers testified that they were with him, and he enjoyed his free time chatting to people of the village, soaking up the atmosphere and the beer. Several soldiers also testified that they walked back to the camp together at 10:30. It was from this time that no one really knows what happened. For some reason, Leroy went absent without leave. In his court testimony, he said he'd made a date with a lady and was to come back and knock at the window of a little canned goods store.
I think they had a stereotyped image of the black man from the Hollywood movies. But I think this image was very quickly dispelled when they met these black soldiers, when they invited them into their homes for tea and found out that actually they were human beings, the same as them.
Dot Griffin was a young wife and mother in 1944, and she lived in Coombe Down. She remembers what the villagers thought about the black troops.
Everybody used to take pity on them, and, you know, they were soldiers away from home. And that was it. They were normal to us, and they were invited into people's houses, same as I remember. We used to go to the dances, and the village of Southstoke, they used to have little dances over there that we could always go over there. You know, that was how we spent our time.
I looked at the particular case of Leroy Henry and found that perhaps it was really nothing more than a sordid liaison that had gone wrong for the two people involved. Nevertheless, they were both victims of something larger than themselves. When she betrayed him, she must have had no idea what could happen to him for that. And I wanted to make a love story where the girl and the boy were so deeply in love that the very thought of it ending would send the girl off into paroxysms of jealousy and actually betray him. I mean, I believe what Oscar Wilde said, that each man kills the thing he loves, and I think we've all got a propensity to betray. And so I wanted to explore that theme, and also I'd happened to spoken to some people who had had very happy relationships with the black GIs.
One of these was between Louis Edmeade and a Bristol girl called Patricia. Whilst he was stationed at Muller's Orphanage in Bristol, they met and fell in love. Eventually they married and lived happily together until Louis's death a few years ago.
I met my husband at a dance in Horfield, and he was very charming and persistent. I wasn't keen to take Louis home, you know, I wasn't that serious about it, but my sister wanted him to meet my parents, so they got the house ready, as, you know, you want it to be, and I took him home. My father liked him straight away, but they were very worried about us because we were so young. They naturally worried about their daughters, because with older men, Louis was 8 years older than me. But they took him at face value, they weren't prejudiced.
But in Leroy's case, evidence suggested that it wasn't a love story.
Hey, baby. Coming out to play?
It was a transaction. Money for sex. Leroy stated that he had met her twice before and had had sex with her for money, £1 a time. On the night in question, the woman had asked for £2. She, he alleged, had said,
"I'll get you in trouble."
And he was in trouble, and she could have had no idea just what trouble he was in, because the one thing that southern white Americans hated was the idea of a black man going with a white woman.
To take advantage of all those English girls was okay if you was white. All I'm saying is Jimmy was black, breaking America's most fearful taboo. See, white doughboys, they can screw away to their heart's content. See, they get showered with shiploads of rubbers and advice on clearing the clap, but if you were black, well, just you don't get found out, that's all. Because if you do, you got to pay the full, and I mean the full price.
unaware of the consequences, this was the story told by the woman when she was discovered out on the streets, late at night, by her husband only wearing a coat over her nightdress. She stated that she had never seen the soldier before. She had heard someone knocking, and when she opened the window, he'd asked for directions to Bristol. He was making quite a bit of a noise, so she told her husband, who was half asleep, that she was going to put a soldier on the right road. She quickly put on her coat and walked off with the soldier into the night. She told of how he pulled out a knife and raped her. Concerned by her absence, her husband came looking for her, and when he realized what had happened, took her to a nearby Red Cross post and contacted the authorities. When riding in a police car, she identified Leroy as her assailant.
There he is!
It is really the betrayal by Judas with the kiss. The whole thing, the whole play is about betrayal. Betrayal of the girl for the man she loves, of the country for its race, and of our country for its defenders.
The wheels were in motion. From the moment Leroy was handed over to the military police and taken to Shepton Mallet prison, he didn't stand a chance. He was charged with violation of the 92nd Article of War, rape, and violation of the 61st Article of War, absence without leave for 2.5 hours. Leroy's trial and court-martial were quickly arranged. Doctors' testimony confirmed at the trial held at Nook Camp in Wiltshire that there was never any doubt that sex had taken place that night. Her husband testified that he had not had sexual relations with his wife for several days. The evidence stacked up against Leroy.
The Visiting Forces Act of 1942 basically allowed the Americans complete jurisdiction over their troops, civil and military crimes. And they were the only Allied country that had this prerogative. They could execute their own soldiers. No other country had this. There was a lot of embarrassment in Whitehall at the Home Office and at the Foreign Office about this act, because they were well aware that in certain cases, particularly rape, the punishment would be far in excess of what the culprit could expect in this country. However, there were reasons why we had to keep this Anglo-American relationship sweet. We needed the support of the Americans to win this war. And so it was delicately brushed under the carpet, without ever admitting that they knew about what was going on inside the prison. That's Shepton Mallet prison. They had supplied a works foreman to go down there and help the Americans prepare it, right down to the business of building an execution shed and the gallows that went with it. And of course, ultimately, to supply our own hangman, Albert Pierpoint.
He was England's official executioner. Seeing this sideline of his hanging Americans wasn't too well known. They kept it a secret because rape was not a capital crime in England. And besides, if you'd have taken 22 American soldiers and hung them one after the other, all in one morning, you'd have kept your mouth shut too, no?
During the war, the official figures up to August 1945 were 169 American servicemen sentenced to death for rape, 29 were actually executed, 25 of those were black. And that was out of an army that was only 10% black.
Given the fact that mixed marriages were illegal in about 35 states of America at that time, the American authorities tried to stamp on sexual liaisons between black and white because obviously they felt that there wasn't much to look forward to. A marriage between a white English girl and a black GI was destined to fail in most states of America. So usually when people asked permission to marry under those circumstances, they were just refused.
Louis knew he was going back and he told me, and we went to see my dad. And my dad said to Louis, "You'll always be welcome here." And he said, "Will I be welcome as son-in-law?" And I was hiding behind the door listening. And my father said yes. They really liked one another. And we were very happy together. We had a very good life. He was a wonderful person. I have 2 sons. Yeah. And I miss him.
Back in 1944, things were not working out so well for Leroy Henry.
We find you guilty of rape and sentence you by the unanimous vote of every member present to be hanged by the neck until dead.
But the locals would not let the sentence go unnoticed. They started a petition to free him.
I haven't had time to put this in the play. There's just not room in an evening to discuss this. But these 2 chaps, Sam Day and Jack Allen, got together and they did an extraordinary thing. Because while Eisenhower was worrying about what he was going to do with his troops on D-Day, all that, these 2 men managed to get a petition over to him, and it contained 31,000 signatures. An extraordinary feat, given that there was press censorship, that there was 1,001 reasons why ordinary people wouldn't want to be concerned with this. These 2 chaps managed to galvanize that many people to sign for this man's life.
Yes, I remember it. I was working at the Admiralty at the time, and we all signed it. But we didn't think it was fair that he should be singled out like that. I mean, you weren't the only one, so you just had to stand by it, like.
Chocolate soldier from the USA. They used to call him just a chocolate dreamer.
People wrote letters, not just to Eisenhower and the Judge Advocate General at Cheltenham, but to President Roosevelt. The Daily Mirror ran a campaign to save the life of this man. One black man when tens of thousands of troops were being killed in Normandy.
Eisenhower gets to hear about Jimmy's case, and he's under pressure to do something about it. The English public is kicking up a ruckus, first because they hate injustice, and second, and 31,000 signatures were witness to this fact, they don't like American fascists doing their lynching on British soil. Anglo-American relations are at an all-time low, so Ike orders an investigator to go down there to see whether he can detect the stink of the Ku Klux Klan on the cobbled streets of Somersetshire.
I don't think Eisenhower would have interfered if it hadn't been for that petition from Sam Day and Jack Allen. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I don't think it would have even got as far as him. It did result in the man being returned to work. No retrial, no reduced sentence, simply verdict and sentence disapproved. He was quietly redeployed. No one really knows what happened to him after that. I picked up his case, his story, in St. Louis, and I believe that he died in 1971. And there is a theory that he became a priest.
A landing was made this morning on the coast of France by troops of the Allied Expeditionary Force.
Black soldiers alongside whites contributed to the eventual victory.
And when they got home, nothing had changed. Nothing. Good enough to die for America. Oh, yeah. But not good enough to live next door to or to sit next to on a bus. A colored GI in uniform traveling south of the color line, he had a better chance of survival on a Mississippi chain gang. They weren't even allowed to march in the victory parade through New York City.
I'm a sort of channel through which all the threads of it go, a mouthpiece, if you like, for a group of people who had no recognition for the part they played in liberating Europe. These people had no rights at home or in the army, and yet they traveled all this way to help us defeat Hitler. And 50 years later, they're still waiting for some sign that we recognize the part they played. There's an association just being formed called the 2,221. These were the men who volunteered to replace the white soldiers who were dying in the Battle of the Bulge. And I met half a dozen of them on my trip across America, and not one of them wasn't injured, both physically and mentally, by their experience. They don't talk bitterly about it because they're too proud of what they did for that, but there is this feeling that maybe it's time that they marched first in the parade.
And if we only build our castles with both our feet on the ground, we'll live happily ever after when the boys are homeward bound.